Good afternoon, YouTube. Just wanted to do a quick update on the LB7 here. And, I purchased a Spicer U-joint for the rear because I could feel in the O'Reilly's Precision brand that it was a little on the cheaper side and could feel every needle bearing, at least in one of the caps. And seeing as how the drive shaft had been acting like a megaphone, and any harmonics given off probably by the ratchety feeling of every needle bearing, it's the whole thing. But the reality is, I thought that would be the problem. New U-joint is vastly superior to the O'Reilly's Precision brand, and I got it for probably a little bit cheaper than what I paid for the Precision one, and I got it off of Amazon. And everywhere else, Merchant Auto, D-Max store, they had it, but it was $40-some plus shipping, and I got it for $20-some free shipping here the next day for the Spicer. So, well worth it. At some point we'll have to do the front U-joint, but for now it's okay. It'll do the job. But I managed to install the U-joint in the right direction this time so that the grease zerk is facing the right direction. I can actually grease it without pulling the drive shaft off, so that's nice. It only took 3 times, but live and learn. You think you're putting it in the right way, and then you put it on the truck and go, shit. Oh well, it still works. You just gotta pull it off to grease it and hold the caps together, and yeah. So anyway, but I have a transfer case gasket. I have the transfer case that was on the LLY yet sitting in the back, and so one of these days I will get around to slapping that transfer case in here, which Dad believes is probably no good. Or, on its way out, so to speak. He thought the transfer case was probably making some noise on that. I didn't hear anything when I was driving it, but I don't know. I tried listening for it, didn't hear anything. Maybe it wasn't warmed up enough, who knows. But I figure if the noise either changes to a different tone, or a different noise entirely, a different position in the transfer case, whatever the problem may be with the LLY transfer case, if there is one, at least I'll know that it's the transfer case making the noise, because I doubt they're making the same exact noise at the same exact frequency that I'm hearing it. That kind of would be a little odd. And if I'm still hearing the noise, well, then I have to suspect rear diff or the transmission rear housing bearing or something like that. Something's howling like a bearing that's starting to go out. Dad was kind of suspecting maybe like the pump rub, because this transfer case has supposedly been replaced with a brand new unit at one point, maybe probably even a reman, who knows. The guy, when I bought the truck, the guy's like, yeah, I put a new transfer case on it, and I took a look underneath the truck, and he goes, you see it? And I'm like, yeah. I didn't know what the frickin' transfer case was at the time. I was just that green with truck stuff, so I've never, Now, this truck has a few more miles on this transfer case than the LLY, probably by about 10,000, 15,000, something like that. The LLY transfer case is an original OE unit that came with the truck. The LLY has 260-some thousand miles. We've never had a pump rub issue with it. And I'm not saying that it's not gonna have an issue. It's just amazing that truck was the most reliable truck we've ever had, to a T, to everything. And other than the usual LLY injector harness issue, we went 260,000 miles without ever putting an LBZ mouthpiece, without putting a down pipe on it. It had a 4-inch exhaust. The intake was stock. And the truck never had an issue with overheating. Never really did heavy towing, but it did pull a pretty heavy enclosed trailer back from New York. It's pulled trailers to New York. It was mainly a highway baby, but it it was the best truck we could ever ask for. We got 260,000 miles out of original injectors. And it wasn't until the last 30,000 we put on, we transferred those injectors to the new engine we had put in, which is the engine that's sitting in the back of the shed now. We transferred those injectors over because we thought maybe they'd be better than what the engine came with. Well, that was a mistake, because then they really started to show their true colors. Otherwise, the injectors had never been touched, the harness. And it wasn't until we messed with the harness and messed with the injectors that we started having the injector harness issue and stuff like that. I just tell you that, and I've seen some posts on Facebook on some of the groups I'm on where they're like, I just bought an LLY. Am I supposed to be worried about stuff? And I said, no, you fix those common issues. Do the turbo inlet downpipe. You do the injector harness issue, and eventually you'll have to do head gaskets. That's just a given. And people condemn the LLY. They condemn the LB7. Head gaskets, blah, 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 head gaskets. Oh! Do you not realize that any diesel is going to have head gaskets done? I don't care if you go 2 million miles before you have to do a head gasket. Every vehicle on the planet Earth has to have a head gasket at some point. Okay? So it's just at the rate at which they need head gaskets. And yeah, the LLY is probably a little premature on that, but the LLY is a massively solid power plant. I choose the LLY over the LBZ, over the LB7, really. The turbo sounds immaculate. We never had a turbo issue. And considering the fact that my LBZ, when I bought it, had 150,000 on the turbo, and I'm already on my second turbo, which is a used unit because the bearings started going out in it. And Dad's turbo's doing the same thing at 200,000 miles. The turbo bearings are starting to go out. So LBZs are known for chewing up turbo bearings. That's just an LBZ. And I suppose everybody's going to say, well, my LLY went through 15 turbos in 5 months, freaking bearings, blah, blah, blah. There's always that guy. But for us, like I said, our LLY was the best freaking truck we could have asked for. 200-some thousand miles. Other than head gaskets and thermostats and frick, that's about it. Never leaked a drop of oil, never dropped a lick of coolant. I mean, the thing was just, and that's why when I got this truck, that's kind of how this was. I mean, it didn't have a drip of oil, didn't have a drop of coolant. I don't know. I'm just going to drive it. And this thing's getting a pump rub issue, or if the transfer case bearings are going bad, I don't know. I'm just going to drive it. Drive her till she blows. Something gets so bad that it's obvious that that's the problem. I don't know. Funny how my video went from here's an update to a LLY rant, but it just was bugging me really badly that people condemn the LLY. Quit it. There's nothing wrong with the LLY. It's a solid engine. The LB7's a solid engine. The LBZ's an okay solid engine-ish. I mean the fact that I bought my LBZ donor truck, or what ended up being a donor truck, had a broken crank. Of course, it had 340,000 miles on it, but either way, broken crank. It's not the first LBZ I've heard of with a broken crank. It's not uncommon, I guess, for Duramaxes to break cranks. So, but I don't know. It just seems like everything LBZ and up is a lot more prone to breaking cranks and cracking pistons and stuff like that. Where LB7 and LLY have the better pistons, so, and LBZ's got better rods. Whoop-de-doo. When the crank breaks, what do stronger rods mean? What good are those? But of course, what are better pistons if the rod snaps? I don't know, or the crank snaps. You know what I'm saying? Every engine's got its thing, but overall, the Duramax is a pretty freaking solid power plant. I mean, my LBZ's got 200,000 on it now, and the engine itself, this LB7's got almost 300,000. We're 3/4 of the way to 300,000. So we're gonna drive it all summer here. Hopefully we can keep her going. Hopefully we can keep coolant in it since the oil cooler's starting to weep probably a little more and more. But get her all done up as much as I can. Keep fluid in the front diff since the seals are leaking. Upper oil pan I think started leaking. I gotta try and take that factory catch can off and empty that, because that's either this thing's starting to get blow by or it's starting to have an oil can that's overflowing, because it's then kind of leaking some oil down the catch can breather. And if you're wondering what I mean by catch can, it's right here. It's hard to freaking see it. I can't see it, the glare in my phone screen. That's the PVC catch can from the factory on an 01 LB7. I believe the 02 LB7 started routing the breather tube from the both valve covers to the intake. So this is pre-everything, EGR and PCV. But and someone corrected me and said that the LB7 never had an EGR valve. That may be true, I don't know. California emissions. But other than that, didn't. Which was nice, because when we pulled the heads off, you could eat out of the intake runners. They were so clean. But we pulled the ones off the LLY, 260,000 miles, and we're like, hoofda. That's a lot of freaking carbon buildup. Yuck. So it's nice that the turbo's staying clean, the intake's staying clean. Only thing I need to do on this thing yet, and I really would like to, but don't have the funds to, and I won't for a while, is the Y-bridge. That's what I'd like to get done on this next, because people say that this is a restrictive Y-bridge. Well, that'd be interesting to see, you know, what the difference is. But I'd get another pusher Y-bridge if I could, because I really like the way they flow compared to Whirly and whatever else Y-bridge is out there. I just like the fact that they split the air instead of just having the air come into the Y-bridge and split off. This seems a little more aerodynamic from the pusher intake side of things. So, you know, at some point it'd be nice if the channel would grow enough so I could get, you know, maybe some Patreon members or something that want to help out with this build. I'd love to take this truck to the next level, but I'm not gonna ask for that. That's just something they'd have to suggest, I guess. A whole group of people, not just one or two saying, oh, you should get a Patreon. Because at some point I'd like to do you know, like 30 or 40% tips on this, do a trans build with a 6-speed upgrade, do a Stealth 64 or a Stealth 67 G2, you know, something a lot more powerful, and see if we can blow the bottom end out of this thing. Or if we have to build the engine, do an LML block, because supposedly it has 40 more pounds of material to help support the crank from breaking and whatever else. And obviously with the internals would just get built either way, but do an LML block. That would be the ideal situation. And I would probably even consider doing, like, keeping the LML injectors in and keeping the LML heads and just wiring up the injectors to, you know, having like EFI Live tune the truck to run the LML injectors just a little bit quieter, maybe a little bit more reliable than the LB7 ones. And that way it doesn't take, you know, of course it was my first time and I was doing it alone and I took my time. It took me 18 hours to do the injectors on this truck. And I know that's way over book time, but I was making sure it was done to the T, T's crossed, I's dotted, that BS. So I wanted to make sure this puppy was good to go and not mess it up, because I didn't want to do this a second time. That sucked ass trying to get some of these valve cover bolts off on the driver's side. So, but it was well worth it. I mean, I guess it's not. It still hazes a smidge from what I can tell, but it could be the tune. Maybe can't burn all the amount of fuel that the Tune 5 is pushing. I don't know. But I really like this truck. You know, the LB7. It's just it's a beast. With the tunes I've got on it, it's just a beast. it blows the LLY. I mean, it would have been actually, let's do this. The LLY kicked this truck's ass. I think I had the 90 horsepower super chip at the time, but the LLY on stage 3 Bully Dog Power Pup, it kicked this thing's ass. And I'm telling you, the LLY, well, I mean, it is the truck that's sitting in here. Crew cab, short bed, had a fiberglass topper on it, and a heavy ass bed slide full of mechanics tools. It was, and construction tools. I mean, it was always loaded down, and it walked away from this thing. I could not believe that. Almost 30 pounds of boost, and it walked away from this thing. That was insane. Now, I don't know that we ever raced since I got Corey Willis tunes, because I guarantee this thing, oh my gosh. And it's just disgusting. The LLY, the Power Pup, is a hell of a tune. It is very hot. And literally, 12 to 1300 degrees was average when you're just daily driving the thing. Granted, it still had a factory Y bridge, but it had the turbo mouthpiece, it had the S&B, and it had the MBRP downpipe. That truck ran hot with it. Bully Dog on there. Oh my goodness, was that ever hot. But that truck knew how to move. You put the pedal down, it went. And it did not complain about it. That was, I tell you, that truck was just insane. I miss the LLY so much. The LBZ with Corey Willis 150 horsepower tunes, triple disc torque converter, can't even begin to keep up with what the LLY could do. The LB7 with 120 horsepower Corey Willis tune will just smash the LBZ. It's just insane, the tuning difference or the performance difference of the trucks. Now granted, the LBZ steel crew cab short bed with no topper, it's just a fiberglass, or I'm sorry, it's a roll-up tonneau cover, empty bed pretty much most of the time. So there's no reason that truck should be walking away, or that this truck should be walking away from the LBZ with the 150 horsepower tune and a triple disc torque converter. But this thing, stock trans, just is an absolute rape ape, and the LLY probably would have still kicked this thing's ass. That just blew me away that day, because it's set up how it was set up on that day. Roll-up tonneau cover, 285s, nothing's changed except tunes. And it's made a hell of a difference. But one day we'll get the LLY plopped in something, and we'll be sure to put these things head to head, because I want to get that, get the trans built enough to where this thing can just let her eat all day and enjoy things. But anyway, I suppose it's pretty close to a 20-minute video. Mr. Helicopter wants to interrupt here. Don't know what that is. Yeah. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of the LB7. Keeping her up as much as I can. And I did get some of the interior stuff done that needed to be done, which is I got the rear tweeters put back in, got the subs wired up again. Most of the wiring was still okay. I didn't get burnt up from the bad amplifier that was in here. I just have to order a new switch for the dash. Oh yeah, I gotta order a new switch. In my seat, I just cleaned. It's already filthy, but I got really good cleaner. Just spritz, and perfectly clean leather again. So that's always nice. But and I gotta get a couple new switches, do some LED upgrades on them, and pretty well be good to go. And then my Chinese LEDs and the gauge cluster that like to flicker on and off. But yeah, I know it's still a mess under the dash, but I'm not done there either. So still got to fix the steering wheel switches. I haven't driven this truck in 2, 3, 4 weeks. yeah, it's just been sitting around doing nothing since I got the boat. Put the LBZ in here just so it's out of the way. I'll let this one sit and mellow for a while because, well, I gotta at least use some of the money and I keep spending on that truck and drive it. So, where this one I don't put any money into other than oil changes and fuel filter and just drive it. So, but this one, put all the money into it relentlessly and I don't drive it because something still sounds like shit. So, what can you do? You gotta drive it anyway. So, but I mean something that's howling sounds like crap. So whatever. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching.